Good morning, everyone. My name is Bob Rawson. I serve as the interim dean of the Case Western Reserve School of Law, and in that capacity, I'm delighted to welcome everybody here and to kick off this wonderful symposium. I think it's a unique symposium, as you will see as it unfolds. It is sponsored by SISTER, our Dispute Resolution Academic Center, and co-sponsored by the Cox International Law Center. It's on the dynamics of conflict and the process and lessons of peace in Northern Ireland. And it's unique because it features actual participants in the events that were at issue, who were also opponents during the conflict, and participated, therefore, not only in the conflict, but in the resolution thereof. We'll also hear from scholars who've devoted much of their scholarly agenda to attempting to understand and learn from the conflict and the peace process. Having spent the evening last night with the participants, I can tell you it's a lively group. I can tell you that you will enjoy them both personally and as a consequence of their personal experience and their professional perspective on what went on. I want to especially thank Professor Calvin Sharp, whom you'll hear from in a minute, who is the leader of our sister organization and who is the inspiration behind this event today, but also is a thoughtful and, I might add, courageous leader of our effort on the dispute side of the House here at the law school. And I want to thank Professor Michael Sharp, who also, as director of the Cox International Law Center, is a co-sponsor and will be very active in the events here today. But I want to particularly thank Professor Bonnie Weir, who is in front, and you will hear from her in the moments to come. She was recently appointed to the political science faculty at the University of Illinois, and she who, along with Professor Sharp, conceived of this program and helped to assemble the august group from whom you are about to hear. I think we're all in for quite a treat as the symposium unfolds. I'm now going to turn the program over to Professor Sharp, the founding director, for some remarks, followed by Professor Scharf. And I want to point out that Professor Sharp is voice challenged these days, unfortunately, and will be using voice-assisted technology. But it's worth waiting and listening to what Professor Sharp has to say. Calvin.
Thank you, Dean Rawson, for that welcome and introduction. And thank you very much for the institutional and moral support of this program. I want to add my welcome to all of you. This program promises to offer unusual insights into the dynamics of conflict and peaceful resolution in Northern Ireland. And just as importantly, to hold some lessons for peacemaking in other contexts. This day represents the culmination of more than 2 years of collaboration between Professor Weir, who, as the Dean mentioned, is a member of the University of Illinois Political Science faculty, and me. On behalf of SISTER, Professor Weir was a PhD student at the University of Chicago when she called me with this idea. She had heard about SISTER and thought that we might be interested. And so right she was. She is responsible for the appearance of most of our speakers on today's program. And I am particularly delighted that the Cox International Law Center agreed to co-sponsor the program. Again, Michael Sharf and I began to talk about co-sponsorship more than a year ago. I'm delighted not only because our two centers share an affinity for the topic, overlapping, as it does with both the international law and conflict and dispute resolution fields, but also because SISTER, which is celebrating its 5th anniversary this year, was launched at the suggestion of Michael Sharf in a program on rebuilding nation building back in April of 2005, where the Cox Center was the principal sponsor and SISTER a co-sponsor. As you may know, the Cox Center sponsors an array of impactful programs both here at the law school and internationally in some of the most important global venues. Perhaps Professor Sharf, who is the director of the Cox Center, will give you a few of the highlights before kicking off today's program. Sister really values its relationship with the Cox Center. So thank you for being here, and enjoy the program. I would now like to turn the program over to Professor Scharf. After his words of welcome, he will introduce Professor Weir, who will introduce the program and introduce and moderate the first panel. The second panel will be introduced and moderated by Professor Scharf, who will also moderate the combined panel at the end. Michael, would you come up?
Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to see so many people out here this early. I want to start by again thanking Calvin Sharp and Bonnie Weir for including me in what I think you will find to be a really extraordinary morning. This is an important project, and what happened during the Good Friday Peace Accords and its implementation phase is not just relevant to history, but it's relevant to things that are going on today. It is not a coincidence that Senator Mitchell is now leading the U.S. efforts to restart the Israeli-Palestinian peace process because of his successes with the Good Friday Accords. And the kinds of challenges and obstacles that he faced then are likely to repeat, and I'm sure there are going to be all sorts of new challenges and obstacles. But the lessons from today are also instructive for the future. I want to say, Calvin, you are a total inspiration to me, and nobody could have a better colleague than Calvin Sharp, and I wanted to start off by saying that and thanking you personally for that. Calvin mentioned that this is being co-sponsored by the Cox Center. This law school is very fortunate that 20 years ago it got a large endowment to start an international law center. And often where there's money, there can be great successes. So over the years, we've had a number of major conferences, often co-sponsored with other of the institutes and centers, especially Sister. And these have produced some really insights. Often we have publications that go along with them, and we are really trying to move the ball along in all sorts of areas, including peace and reconciliation. This year, we started out with a conference on lawfare, which I know some of you attended. We have coming up in the second semester Philippe Sands, the author of the best-selling book Torture Team. He's giving the Klatsky Lecture. We have a conference on the Katyn Forest Massacre, which is having its 60th anniversary this year. We have a conference on the role of professionals, psychiatrists, lawyers and doctors in the Army during the War on Terror. So lots of other interesting and provocative and insightful events coming up to look forward to. But for now, I want to kick off this event by introducing the person who was really the brainchild of this. And she is a homegrown success story. I found out last night she's from our own Cleveland Heights, just up the road. Bonnie Weir is now an assistant professor of political science at the University of Illinois, and her specialty or expertise in her work has been in the field of the Troubles of Northern Ireland. Her approach to this has been an interview-based study of the case, and what I found out from our panelists, who you'll be hearing from, is that she has, of all the researchers who have jumped into this, been uniquely able to befriend, earn the trust, and move the initiative forward from an academic point of view. And so, without further ado, I introduce Bonnie Weir.